talking to myself again. But it's the only way you're ever gonna learn. You look back and it's all in the past. I'm dwelling on the thoughts I cannot say to you. If I don't say the words, then maybe it's not true. And it feels alright.
Hi, and welcome along to the Christmas Eve edition of NUFC Matters. It is Those Were the Days with George Mitchell, and we're looking at season 1972-1973, the year I was born, George, 72.
Never. Wow. Then it was an important year then. Yeah, it was certainly was an important year for Newcastle United. That's the squad. And it was important for a number of reasons, not least because the ground was being redeveloped. So Joe Harvey had no money for players, absolutely nothing. And outside of in the music world, American Pie, Popcorn Hunter, Will You Marry, Knights of White Satin, all really memorable records. And then in the top films, The Godfather, Poseidon Adventure, What's Up Doc, and Deliverance. Some great memories in there. Just run the first few pictures on, Steve, because there's a few which are just to talk about. We entered the cup. We entered every bloody cup that year. I'm not being cynical and saying I think the directors were trying to make money, but we're in the League Cup, the FA Cup, the Texaco Cup, and the Anglo-Italian Cup. I mean, I don't think where they could have fit. I've got a few images of the Texaco Cup because I didn't realise. I thought the Texaco Cup was like the FA Cup. You know, you got your name carved on it and they give it back. Well, apparently not. They print new ones they make a new one every year, apparently. And so you got the cup to keep, but not all the same shape, but very much alike. But as I say, we entered everything we could enter, and I could be cynical and say because they had no money in the coffers, they wanted as many people through the turnstiles as they could get. So we entered everything that we could. Is there one or two? Now I've put that in. It's Terry Hibbett. Joe Harvey's hope for this team that they would do something, and the only worry he had was he felt he was. Hadn't the depth. He was short of depth to support the squad. But that's one player he was desperate to get hold of, and he did. And the next one as well, I think, is that Tony. There's Tony Green. There's the other one. I know Harvey felt that with these two fit and on the field, they could make the bullets for McDonald and Shooter to put in the back of the net. And I don't think he was wrong, actually. That's because that season, that's exactly what happened. Except that as we go through, you'll see it wasn't that easy. And in terms of no money, tune in that year. Paul Cannell signed professional. Alan Kennedy signed professional. Dave Crossan signed professional. The only transfer in of any note was Terry McDermott from Bury. And Ray Hudson turned professional. So no big marquee signings, as they call them, these. And on the way out, Keith Kennedy, Chris Guthrie, Ron Guthrie, David Young, and Ray Ellison, all local lads, being pushed out. So no massive signings for Joe Harvey to bring in. But however, that's the way we went. And I think the next picture is, that's the first league game. Well, guess what, Steve? Before that first league game, we had 3 friendlies, would you believe?
Hey!
Remember all the cups we're in, and we're still playing bloody friendlies. We went on a tour of Scotland. We went to St Johnstone, went to Partick Thistle in Greenock Morton. And, I mean, the biggest crowd was at St Johnstone. Partick Thistle was 7,000. But all that in 5 days, 5 days, three friendlies in Scotland. Did we really need money that badly? I suspect we did, actually. But never mind. There's the friendlies out the way. So the first league game was Wolves, and it was a match which always an exciting game of Wolves, always a good challenge. Our team for starting the season was McFall, Craig Clark, Tommy Gibb, Pat Howard, Bob Moncur, Stuart Barraclough, Tony Green, Malcolm MacDonald, John Tudor, and Terry Hibbett. And 33,900 at the game with Wolves, and we got off to a good start with a 2-1 win with Tony Green and John Tudor scoring the goals, and Steve Kindon scoring Wolves goals. A good match. I remember being there, and the one which we won fairly straightforwardly. Wolves were rebuilding after having had a team a long time. The only notable ones in the team still were Jim McCalliog and Peter Easter rather, and John Richards, who was becoming a star for Wolves. So that's what our first game out of the way, and the next game is Birmingham City away, and it's a one which, by any stretch of the imagination, we should be thinking would have a reasonable chance of getting something out of, but we didn't. We lost 3-2, and McFall scored an own goal for them, then Latchford scored and Hope scored, then Malcolm MacDonald and Stuart Barraclough scored for us. It was 25,000 at St Andrews for that match, and our team was the same one as kicked off the season: McFall, Craig Clark, etc. And people were disappointed that we lost 3-2, but they gave a good account of themselves. The big name for Birmingham, of course, and the one who caused all the trouble. Well, there was two big names: Trevor Fanstris, who was the rising star, first £1 million footballer, and Bob Latchford, who was the centre forward who did well for them, but also did equally well for Everton as well. So one win and one loss in this first couple of games, and then we off to a second away game to Sheffield United, and again people thought, well, that's a game that we should get something from, and we did this time. We beat Sheffield United 2-1 with John Tudor and Malcolm MacDonald scoring the 2 goals. 23,000 at the match. It was a 0-0 at half time, a hard-fought game at Bramall Lane, and our team was unchanged from what started, except that halfway through the second half, Stuart Barraclough was substituted with John Cowan because he got an injury. Sheffield United had Cahoon brothers who played for them, and then as Alan Woodward, a good attacking forward that they got from Nottingham Forest, and another person they got from Nottingham Forest, that went to Nottingham Forest and then eventually came to us, was a winger called Trevor Hockey, and he caused us all sorts of trouble that day. But trouble or not, we won 2-1. So we're going in the right direction. The next game is a home game against West Brom, and we haven't had an away win. We certainly hope that we'll get something from the home game against West Brom. But this is another team that traditionally we have good football games with West Brom. Our team is the same as before, except that because Stuart Barraclough's injured, Jinky Jim Smith turns up on the right wing. 29,600 at the St James's for this one, and West Bromwich Albion got a couple of Geordies in. Gordon Nisbet fullback who comes from Wallsend, where I am, and Colin Suggett was in the team, of course, who eventually came back to us, and Alistair Brown, who was one of the star forwards. So it ended 1-1. It was 1-1 at half time with Alistair Brown giving them the lead on 14 minutes, and then Supermac equalising on 18 minutes, and so we got a 1-1 draw, and still keeping us going in the right direction. The next game was a home game against Ipswich Town, and I don't know if there's a programme for that one, Steve.
No, you haven't. You've got away games next.
Couldn't find the Ipswich one. Anyway,
they're all the same cover anyway in this season.
Yeah. Our team against Ipswich, the same, exactly the same, and has gone. McFall, Craig Clark's, John Cowan stayed in the team because of the injury to Barraclough. Ipswich were playing good football in those days, and of course managed by a certain Bobby Robson at that time, and Mick Mills and Kevin Beattie were their fullbacks, and well-known international players. Brian Hamilton, an Irish right winger, was a good player, and a striker called Trevor Wymark, who was to cause all sorts of difficulties for people. But we lost that one 2-1, much to the disgust of the Gallagher corner. 24,600 at the game. Actually, we were 1-0 down at half time, and by the hour, we were 2-0 down. And on 80 minutes, Supermac gave her a chance by pulling one back, but we weren't able to do anything with it. So we lost to Ipswich 2-1, which wasn't expected, should we say. Now, the next match was another home game against Spurs. And people hoped that would recover. Well, we didn't recover. We lost that one as well, 1-0. There's a salt in the wound with this one. The people were 1-0, and a man called Joe Kinnear scored the winning goal. Yeah. I mean, if that doesn't put salt in the wound, I don't know what. Our team was the same, except that John Cowan was now injured, and they brought in a young lad called Irvin Natras, who was to become a very talented player with Newcastle United. Spurs, well, they had all nationals on display. Jennings, Phil Beale, Joe Kinnear was left back. Cyril Knowles was playing. Mike England, Steve Perryman, Martin Peters, who they brought from West Ham, of course. Martin Chivers from Southampton, and Alan Gilzine, a Scottish attacker. They were a very talented team, but we had hoped. I think the fans had hoped we would get something out of it. Well, we lost 1-0, and that was disappointing, to say the least. The next game is Crystal Palace away, and that's that. Well, we really did think we were on about a par with Palace, if not slightly above in the league, and hoping. I think the fans thought we might get something out of this one, but it didn't happen. We lost 2-1. We went into the lead early on with John Tudor, but unfortunately, Kellard and Wallace pegged was back by just after half time, so we lost that one 2-1 with 23,000 at Selhurst Park. Our team, well, same again. McFall, Craig Clark, Irvin Natras was on, but ended up going off halfway through the second half to replaced by John Cowan with an injury. Otherwise, the team was the same. Palace, well, they always for many years seemed to pick up players who had big careers with other London clubs, but there was one or two players that they'd made themselves. Like Jerry Queen was a very talented attacker, sometimes centre forward, sometimes support striker. very talented player, and he was in that team. But otherwise, that the team had well, John Jackson, a goalkeeper, was being thought of as in England possible. That's for sure. And we didn't matter. We lost 2-1, and of course we then went to Port Vale for the first league round 2 of the League Cup, and it's a strange program, that one, but it's there, and it's got the teams on the front, which is most unusual. But after all, that's what we want to know. We want to know who's playing, so that's not a bad idea in some ways. So we went to Port Vale, and of course, everybody thought, well, this is we've got to do something against these, surely, in the League Cup, and we did. They didn't disappoint. Newcastle beat them 3-1. It was 2-1 at half time. Although we got the usual wind up our sails with Port Vale going in the lead through Summerscale scored in 10 minutes, and then lo and behold, come back Supermac, David Craig, and Stuart Barraclough to score our 3 goals. So we won that one 3-1, which was great, because it was what people hoped had happened. But as we only know too well, in that cup, and in fact all the cups, we don't always do what we're expected to do. The next game was a home game against Arsenal. Now, everybody expected this to be a tough game, because Arsenal were playing well and were regarded by the pundits as being one of the possible league champions. And we got 1-0 at half time, with Malcolm McDonald just scoring just before half time. And then a Geordie lad from Seaton Delville called Ray Kennedy equalised, and with a thunderous drive, 23,800 at the game, and it was a night game. Sorry, it was a 3 o'clock, traditional 3 o'clock kickoff, and our team virtually unchanged. Typical Harvey, sticking with the players he knows. I mean, in this season, because of all the cups and that, we played, I think it's nearly 60 games, and he only used 24 players, which is incredible. McFall, Craig Clark, David Young sneaks in because of the injuries to the other people at wing half. Jim Smith's in the forward line, but otherwise he picks the same group of players all the time. Arsenal, Jeff Barnett was in goal in place of Bob Wilson, because Bob Wilson was injured. Pat Rice at fullback. Frank McClintock was in the team. Bob McNabb, Alan Ball, who they got from Everton. Ball was originally at the Blackpool World Cup and went to Everton and ended up going to Arsenal. Ray Kennedy, John Radford, George Graham, who became a great manager with them as well. And everybody was delighted with that. I remember being at that match and how pleased people were to see us take the points off Arsenal. So we're going in the right direction in this one. And we then the next game is Ayr United in the Texaco Cup, and this brought back bad memories for what to be bad memories later on, because we played them again in the Texaco Cup, and after that match, the manager got the sack, but it wasn't this manager, it wasn't Joe Harvey. Ayr United, really, one or two ex Scottish internationals who are on the way down. Rick Fleming, John Doyle, Phil McGovern, all good international players in the day, but by now on the way out. But on the way out or not, we couldn't beat them because we ended up with a 0-0 draw. Now our team, well, it was the same team we played in the first division just a couple of days earlier. So 0-0 in the first round of the Texaco Cup. So we go back to a away game at Coventry, and everybody thinks, well, Coventry are beatable. They're not winning everything. They're bounced along the bottom of the league. So everybody thinks, oh, we must have a chance here. Well, we did have a chance. Not only did we have a chance, we beat them 3-0, which was a good win, which 17,000 at the game at Highfield Road. And our team unchanged from the team that played there, with Malcolm MacDonald scoring a hat-trick. He scored 27 minutes, 43 minutes, and 61 minutes. And I think if you look at any of the press reports of that game, he was unplayable that day. He just ran the legs off the Coventry defence, which he was to do to a number of teams after that. Our team unchanged, with Coventry playing Bill Glazier in goal, who was a character. Jeff Blockley at fullback, who was another great character. And then they introduced into the game a little midfield player called Willie Carr, who was to become a Scottish international. And a forward called Billy Rafferty, which we were to get to know much later on at Newcastle United. But we won 3-0, and that was a great fill-up for the tool, for the support, because a loss would have slid we down underneath the middle of the table when that's not where we wanted to be at all. The next game is a home game against Leeds United, and we know this is going to be a tough game, traditionally a tough game, because Leeds are also one of the teams that the pundits are talking about championship with, and so we got our team's unchanged. McFall, Craig Clark, Tommy Gibb comes in at the right side of midfield because of the injuries to others. Malcolm MacDonald's centre forward, but halfway through the second half, Supermac gets injured and Gordon Hodgson comes on. John Tudor and Terry Hibbert complete the line. Now, the Leeds team is all internationals. Goalkeeper David Harvey, Paul Rainey, Norman Hunter, Jack Charlton, Trevor Cherry, Johnny Giles, Mick Bates, Billy Bremner, Nick Jones, Peter Lorimer, and Alan Clark. Alan Sniffer Clark, who would get a goal from anything and from nothing sometimes as well. Well, it was 2-2 at half time. Went off hell for leather this game. I remember being at this game. Every time both teams went forward, it looked like they might actually score. And 35,900 at the game. The way Leeds was regarded reflects in the crowd, in my opinion. But Clark and Jones scored for Leeds. 2 minutes and 8 minutes, and it looked like we're dead. And then all of a sudden, Jimmy Smith and John Tudor bang a couple in, and it's half time. We're going 2-2. Ding dong in the second half. Both teams could have scored, but thankfully for us, on 80 minutes, the trusted left foot of Malcolm MacDonald made it 3-2. So we got that win, and that was a great win as far as the fans are concerned, in terms of the league position we're in, and we're getting well above mid-table now. The next game is the home game against Ayr United, the return fixture in the Texaco Cup. And everybody thinks, well, so disappointed with the first one. Surely they'll pull themselves back with this one. Well, they did. We won 2-0. It wasn't a brilliant game. I remember being at the game and people thinking we're a nothing game. It was. But on the other hand, what's important is that they won 2-0 with Jim Smith on 31 minutes and John Tudor on 86 minutes scoring the 2 goals. And our team was, Joe Harvey, no messing about with this. Joe Harvey puts the full team out. I mean, you think of some of the messing about we get now with the teams when we're in the League Cup, never mind the Texaco Cup. And we're playing reserve teams, not Joe Harvey. This is the first team in the go. And he's got the full team. Supermac's still injured from the league game. So John Tudor moves to centre forward. And he brings Paul Cannell into give him a run out as a youngster and into John Tudor's position. It was the good win, but not the best match I've seen. But we did the important thing. We got through to the next round of the Texaco Cup, and that satisfied most people anyway. We then went on an away game to Everton, and people hoped that we might get something out of the game at Everton. Well, we didn't. We got walloped 3-1, 1-1 at half time. Stuart Barraclough set off on the right path on 25 minutes. Sorry, John Connolly scored for Burnley for Everton in 8 minutes. Then Barraclough equalised in 25 minutes, and then looked like we're going to get a 1-1 out of it when, lo and behold, Joe Royal, the centre forward, and David Johnson, whose son playing for Nottingham Forest now, and incidentally, that's the same Johnson, got 2 goals in the last 5 minutes. So we ended up with a 3-1 loss with 33,000 at the game. Disappointing. From our point of view, team was unchanged. Again, typical Harvey, sticks by the lads he knows. And the other thing I noticed about Joe Harvey, he doesn't use substitutes willy-nilly. People that go on, it's because somebody's injured. He doesn't just use them for tactical reasons. He seemed to use them for... And the Everton team was playing well at the time. Colin Harvey was in the midfield, so was Howard Kendall, John Connolly up front, David Johnston, Joe Royal, Tommy Wright playing in the back three or back of the defence at Everton. So Everton were a tidy side, but still was disappointing to lose 3-1. The next game is a home game, I think. Is a home game. It's the next round of the League Cup. It's against Blackpool, and we're at home. And everybody thinks, well, that we're going to go forward in the League Cup. This is great. I hope I'm not putting the jinx on by Tuesday. Well, it was Blackpool. We should have beat them anyway. Well, lo and behold, we didn't. We lost 3-0, got well and truly walloped. 19,800 at the game. And again, full team out, not as because it was a weak team. The only person that was missing was Supermac because he was still injured. Interesting with Blackpool, though, the goalkeeper was a young man called John Burridge. We ever heard that name before? Budgie was in goal for them, and Tommy Hutchison on the right wing, and at right attacking midfield, or inside right as I would call it, was Alan Suddick, of course, who they bought from us, and also on the left side of that team was a young man called Mickey Burns. Now, I know after this game, a certain Joe Harvey fell in love with Mickey Burns. And guess what? Within a season, Mickey Burns was playing for us. It's funny how many times a player plays well against us. And within less than a season, Joe Harvey's got them at St. James's Park. And why not? Why not? Another home match is the league match now. But that's us done with the League Cup, which, that's being a Newcastle supporter. That's what it's like. Norwich City at home, and everybody thinks, well, this is winnable because they're bumping along the bottom of the league, and so we do well, except the frightened were. They go in the lead with a goal from David Cross, who's a up and coming centre forward with them, and becomes an England international actually. But then within minutes, 24 minutes to score, 29 minutes, Tudor equalises, 53 minutes, Tudor puts with 2-1, and then 73 minutes, Ron Guthrie puts with 3-1 from a free kick just outside the penalty area. And our team's unchanged, except at left back, we've got Ron Guthrie instead of Frank Clark, because Frank Clark's got a knee injury. And of course, we still haven't got Supermac in the team. Blackpool, well, they had... as I say, David Cross was playing for them. Doug Livermore, who was well known with them. But after that, there was nobody very known. But they were a tidy football team, as Blackpool usually were. The manager was a man called Ron Saunders, who became quite famous at West Ham and other places. In fact, almost became England manager, I think, at one stage. And he was always had teams that played football, is what I'd say about Ron Saunders. Next, we went off to Stoke City for an away game. And having had that good win at home, everybody thought, well, maybe we'll get a point out of this. Well, no, we're kidding ourselves. We lost 2-0. Hurst and Robertson scored for Stoke. Both in the second half, we lost 2-0 and after being 0-0 at half time. Everybody thought we might have a chance, but in the second half, but we didn't. We got beat 2-0. And to be frank, what I can read about the game, we never really got started as a team, even though it was the same team that we've been playing all season. But we're still missing Supermac, and I think that might be part of the problem. Stoke had some good big names. Gordon Banks, of course, in goal. World Cup goalkeeper Dennis Smith, who was to become manager of our near neighbours not too long after this. John Mahoney, Terry Conroy, Jimmy Greenhoff, who were brought from Leeds, and a young man called Jeff Hurst, who they bought from West Ham. Now, tonight's story is that because we know that Jeff Hurst scored the last hat-trick in the World Cup in 1966.
Yeah,
well,
and of course, last week in the World Cup final, obviously we had a second one with Mbappe.
That's right, caught up, yeah. So, and I understand, good on Jeff Hurst, from when I was listening to it last week. He sent a text to say, well done, which I think's a nice touch for a man in his position. We then had a home game against Manchester United. And, well, we know that's going to be tough. Manchester United are nobody's fools. And they always attract a good crowd with 39,000 at the game. And we've got our usual team out, except we're still missing Malcolm MacDonald. But we're also missing Tony Green, who from previous match in the league got an injury which he was struggling to recover from. However, we played extremely well. I remember being at this game, and we beat Manchester United 2-1. And we 0-0 at half time, end-to-end stuff, even though it was 0-0. John Tudor opened the score on 68 minutes. Terry Hibbett scored a beautiful left foot drive at 76 minutes. And then lo and behold, Bobby Charlton, of all people, on 86 minutes, scored for Manchester United and made the last 5 minutes hell for the Newcastle fans. Because after that, Manchester United just went berserk. I mean, they were never out of our penalty area. The ball was bombing around as though it was on a billiard table, banging off this one and banging up that one. But we held on with a 2-1 win, which kept us going in the right direction in terms of the league, of course, which was important. We then have a away cup game against West Brom in the Texaco Cup, and we go away and think, well, we know what they're like. We played them in the league and nearly beat them, so we'll see if we can get something out of this advance in this Texaco Cup. Well, we same team: McFall, Craig, Clark, Tommy Gibb, Pat Howard, Bunker, Barraclough, Smith, Tudor, Gordon Hodgson, and Terry Hibbett. We're still missing Malcolm MacDonald. And off we go to West Brom with at the Hawthorns. Very low crowd for even for West Brom, by West Brom standards, only 7,900. So it suggests to me that the West Brom fans weren't taken with the Texaco Cup or something like that. Because normally games between us and West Brom attract a big crowd because we've got a very healthy respect for one another. Anyway, we go to West Brom and hopefully get through the next round. Well, we lose 2-1 with Terry Hibbert scoring for us Alistair Brown scoring for them on 10 minutes and then 27 minutes. And then just before or just in the middle of the second half, 64 minutes, Terry Hibbert makes it 2-1. And we do have a go at them for the last 10 minutes or so. And apparently could easily have got a draw out of it, but we didn't. We lost it 2-1. So we now go back home to, we go to our next game, which is an away game at Chelsea. And we know this is going to be a tough match. Games at Chelsea always are. And people hope that if the lads dig in, they might get something out of the game, and we do. We get a 1-1, which was a great surprise. Ellie McCready scored for Chelsea on 64 minutes after a 0-0 first half, but it was a good football in first half. And then on 81 minutes, Jinky Smith ran from the halfway line right through to their penalty area, beating everybody, including the referee, to score a beautiful equaliser. I mean, he just ran rings around everybody. And I think my memory is that there was a bit in the paper about the fact the reporter said something about he even ran round the referee a couple of times before he put it in the net. I don't think that was true, but it added to the hilarity. 36,000 at the game. Now a team, predictable because it's exactly the same team that's played. Young Gordon Hudson is injured, and Joe Harvey gives Tommy Cassidy a run out, but we're still missing Superman. So we then go home to we then go to West Brom again for an away match in the league, having just been there in the Texaco Cup. And we've given them a good game in the Texaco Cup. Can we do better? And we do. We actually beat them 3-2. And the crowd changes. This is a league match, not the Texaco Cup, and then nearly 20,000 there instead of 7,000. And I think that sends the message. I think that what people thought about the Texaco Cup, which is a pity because there were some good games in the Texaco Cup. Our team unchanged, except Supermax back in. John Tudor shifts to his normal place, and because we don't have any Tony Green, Jim Smith's now a fixture alongside Malcolm MacDonald on the right side of the attack. West Brom have the usual team out. Ray Wilson, ex-World Cup fullback, Gordon Nesbitt from up here. Asa Hartford, a young midfielder who was to become a star and play for England. Colin Suggett, of course, who was to come to us eventually. Alistair Brown, who's very dangerous. And then a centre forward called Bobby Gould, who was to become famous for all sorts of things with Wimbledon rather than West Bromwich Albion. But we won 3-2, and that was pushing us up the league again. People are starting to get a bit excited now because we're above the middle of the league. We're now heading towards the top end of the league, which is great. And then lo and behold, of course, the next match is West Bromwich Albion because it's the second round of the Texaco Cup, except this time it's at home. It's at St James's Park, and we 20,400. It's still a reasonable crowd considering, and our team unchanged as before with Frank Clark now back, but playing defensive left midfield because Bob Monker's picked up an injury, so Ron Guthrie stays at left back and Frank Clark just plays in front of him. West Brom's team, the same team that we played in the Texaco Cup, so they're taking it seriously as well, in the league game rather. and we beat them 3-1 with Asa Hartford frightening us in 20 minutes because he gave them the lead, and then John Tudor 27 minutes, Tommy Gibb 79 minutes, and Terry Hibbett on 88 minutes to make it a 3-1 win. Now, Malcolm McDonald didn't score, but I remember being at this game, and he terrorised the West Brom defence. He couldn't move without the West Brom trying to haul him down or cause him grief of some kind, but he just shrugged it off. While he didn't score himself, he certainly made it easier for the others to score. So we're now heading to a home game against Birmingham City, and want to keep it going because, as I say, we're in the right half of the league now. So we got Birmingham at home, and we got 26,000 at the game. Team is unchanged except that Bob Moncur comes back, and Frank Clark goes back to his position, and Ron Guthrie drops back to the substitutes bench, and we beat Birmingham 3-0. It was a good win actually. Again, a match I do remember, and from the off we seem to be up for this game. Tommy Gibb 2 minutes, Pat Howard 44 minutes, and then Malcolm McDonald on 80 minutes in the second half to make it 3-0. What they call, I think, in old-fashioned parlance, a comprehensive victory. Birmingham really were no trouble to us at all, even though they did have some of their. I mean, the star player, Trevor Francis, wasn't playing because they were getting ready to sell him and sell him to Notts Forest. They did. A young forward called Gordon Taylor, who eventually is still famous because he's the boss of the PFA, and a Scottish midfielder called Ken Burns. Now, Ken Burns was a talented footballer, played well for Scotland as well as for Birmingham, but he was a nasty devil. He had spite in him. If he could get a kick, he would have a kick, and certainly that's the great reputation he had. So we're now on our way to Liverpool, an away match at Liverpool, and we're always now that's a program I like, with the picture of the opposition on the front. It seems a nice style, I think, which is quite nice.
Yeah, it is.
And everybody's high because we've had a sequence of wins in the Texas Cup and in the league. And so everybody's hopeful that we might get something out of this game. Well, hope died in about 5 minutes when Peter Cormick scored the first goal for Liverpool. And then 35 minutes, and Alec Lindsay scored the second one for Liverpool. John Tudor pulled the one back on 37. And then just after half-time, a Welsh forward called John Toshak scored the third, and it looked like we're out of it. But on 66 minutes, Supermax scored a brilliant goal at Anfield, and suddenly we were on pressing them. And for the last 10 minutes, we could have got an equaliser. The reports of this match are how well we played. Even the Liverpool papers I've managed to get hold of on the internet talk about what a hard game it was. And our team, well, it doesn't need to be repeated. McFall, Craig, Clark, Natras, Howard, Monker, Barraclough, Smith, McDonald, Tudor, and Terry Hibbett. And a tough game, but one which we come out with a lot of credit, and which augurs well for the rest of the season. We're then away to West Ham United, and we again another ground where we quite often have a good game, a good turnaround, and our team unchanged, completely the same as went to Liverpool, with Irvin Atlas now establishing himself well and truly in midfield. 26,000 at Upton Park, and so I find it on some of these records it says ball and ground, and then Upton Park. Well, I think the ball and ground is the area it's in, but never mind. That's another issue. It's always Upton Park for me anyway. And and we went and give them a good game. We got a 1-1 draw, which we weren't, and the pundits weren't expecting us to get a draw. We were predicted to get a loss. However, it was hard fought because Trevor Brooken, the famous Trevor Brooken, scored on 80 minutes, and everybody thought, well, that's it. But lo and behold, less than a minute later, David Craig, who found himself in the penalty area with a ball from a corner, and he banged it in. And David Craig didn't score many goals, but this was a good one. And we got a 1-1 draw. West Ham, well, Bobby Moore, Tommy Taylor, Billy Bonds, Trevor Brooken, John Hayes, Clyde Best on the wing, and in attacking midfield, a young man called Brian Robson, who got his transfer to West Ham after he held a press conference at the Five Bridges Hotel with his mother-in-law and slagged off Newcastle United as being unprofessional. Well, if you want to transfer, that's a good way to start. But Seymour and his colleagues made sure he didn't get any money out of the transfer, by the way. Because in those days, if you didn't ask for a transfer, you used to get a fee. And quite often Newcastle would just give the players the fee anyway. Pop didn't get a fee. Didn't get nothing. Didn't get the lickings of a dog either. But never mind. 1-1, and it was a good draw because people didn't expect us to get a draw. And now we're back home again, and we've got Southampton at home. And it's a game everybody hopes would win. It's 20,500 at the match. But I remember this game. What a dismal 0-0. They could have played another hour and none of neither would have scored. And it was just nobody that could set the game on fire, not even Sutermac. He was the only one that came anywhere near with shots flying past the uprights, but that was as close as we got. So a 0-0, but it was, as I say, keep going in the right direction. We're now firmly established just above midway, which is quite healthy, really, at this part of the season. The Southampton team has got Nick Shannon in it, who eventually would come to us in the twilight of his career. Terry Payne and Bobby Stokes, two England wingers who were at Southampton for many, many years. And I do think, I understand, if I remember rightly, there was a period when Newcastle tried to buy Terry Payne when he was at the peak of his England career, but it didn't come off because he was happy at Southampton. The next game, we went in a away game to Derby County, and again, another place where we seem to have good games and good rapport with the opposition fans. Just particularly soft spot for me because I have family that live in Derby and still do. And indeed, when Derby were on, I think I told you when Derby won the television the other night, they showed when Derby scored a goal, it showed the fans, and there, right in the middle of the fans, was my cousin Anne Marie, so Derby, people went off and to this match, 28,800 at the game, and we go in at half time and we're 1-0 up. John Tudor scores in 25 minutes, and everybody thinks, well, hang on, we'll get a win out of this. Well, lo and behold, we hope and we hope. Well, hope wasn't much help to her because on 60 minutes, just on the hour, Davis of Derby, Roger Davis, scored an equaliser, but we got the draw. Derby, lots of well-known players. Colin Todd, who came from down the road. Roy McFarland, who played for England. Archie Gemmell, the Scottish midfielder who played in the World Cup for Scotland. Alan Hinton, a winger from Notts Forest. John O'Hare, of course, who they bought from our friends down the road. And one of their own, Kevin Hector, who was a very dangerous winger in those days. But a 1-1 draw, and again, keeps we heading in the right direction. So we go home to a home match against Manchester City, and always again another team that we seem to have really good football games with hard games, and we get
That way.
a good crowd of nearly 30,000, and things start off good end-to-end stuff. But Manchester's Ian Mellor scored on 22 minutes to give all a fright. But lo and behold, on 36 minutes, Malcolm MacDonald scores from the penalty spot, having been brought down himself. He got up and took the penalty. And then with a hard-fought second half, just after half-time, 50 minutes, and Stuart Barraclough made it 2-1. And that's how it stayed to the end. But it was a good game, and a one which was enjoyable. Our team, unchanged. McFall, Craig, Clark, Natras, Howard, Monka, Barraclough, Smith, McDonald, Tudor, Hibbert. And Manchester City, well, managed by a flamboyant man called Malcolm Allison, who rejoiced in wearing huge fur coats and trench coats and fedora hats. You had all sorts of fedora hats he used to wear. A real character. And the team, Manchester City team, had its characters as well. Joe Corrigan, the goalkeeper, and Glenn Pardo at fullback. Toby Booth played for them for donkey's years. Willie Donaghy. And then the ones that were coming to the fore and was to eventually win the title for Manchester City: Colin Bell, Mickey Doyle, Ian Mellor, Mike Summerby, a really strong attacking player, could play either centre forward or out on the wing. And of course, one of the most talented players I've ever seen in my life with the ball, and wasted his talent in some ways, was Rodney Marsh, who was, as I say, a very, very talented player. So we're now off to Leeds United on an away game. And again, we know this is going to be a tough game. And it was, we've got our usual team out, no changes at all. It's worth saying that people probably noticed that Tony Green hasn't come back because he's really, really struggling. And Leeds, 45,500 at the game at Ellen Road. And that reflects on the usual challenge there was between ourselves and Leeds. Leeds had Colin Harvey, Norman Hunter, Trevor Cherry, Paul Madeley, Paul Rainey, Mick Bates, Terry Yorith, Johnny Giles, Mick Jones, Peter Lorimer, and Alan Clark. And just to add grist to the mill, Mick Bates went off injured, and he was substituted by a Scottish centre forward called Joe Jordan, who was to become quite famous in subsequent years. The beat were 1-0, and it was that substitute I've mentioned who scored the blessed goal, Joe Jordan, much to the disgust of the fans, not of Leeds fans, obviously. 46 minutes just after he came on as substitute. I think it was nearly his first touch of the ball when he scored. So we come home now to a home match against Sheffield United, and everybody's hoping, because Sheffield are bumping along the bottom of the league now, and we're starting to push up towards the top. Well, not disappointed this time. Beat Sheffield 4-1, Sheffield United 4-1. Although we still get the usual scare because they opened the scoring. Poor Bill Dearden scored for them first, and then John Tudor equalised. Irvin Natras scored. So we went in at 2-1 at half time. Then just after half time, Supermax scored. And then lo and behold, another goal for David Craig, who was up for a corner and managed to flick a header into the back of the net. So it was a good win, and a one that kept pushing up the table. Our team unchanged, 28,600 at the match. Sheffield United, no real. There was a new star. Well, Trevor Hockey was in the game because him and Alan Woodward, the centre forward, but they brought a new midfielder in called a blonde lad called Tony Curry, very talented footballer who was to play for England and played for Sheffield for a very long time. But he wasn't able to stop us winning 4-1 that day. So the next game is another home game against Leicester City. And because everybody now 4-1 win, gosh, who wants some more of that? Well, it was a hard-fought game. Leicester weren't going to go down that easy. And we ended up with a 2-2 draw. With Leicester were a good footballing side then, though, and had some good talented players in. 30,800 at the match. And our team unchanged. And Leicester City with, all the talent you could imagine. Peter Shilton, the England goalkeeper. Steve Whitworth. Graham Cross, England international defender. Dennis Rolfe, international defender. Alan Birchnall, international attacker. Keith Weller, who they got from Spurs, a midfielder. Frank Worthington, talented centre forward and something of a character with long hair and a Mexican style moustache, which is his signature. John Farrington, and a left winger called Len Glover, who they got from Charlton Athletic, who was a very dangerous player. 2-2 it ended up in what was a very good football game. We opened the scoring with John Tudor, 16 minutes. They come back straight after half time, 49 minutes from Alan Birchnall, big attacking midfielder. And we go back in the lead with Jim Smith scoring on 75 minutes. And lo and behold, Frank Worthington, the centre forward, gets an equaliser on 87 minutes, and then the next 10 minutes is a scramble. So a good game, a good draw, but an important one for us because it kept it going in the right direction. And slowly but surely, we creeping up the league is how I'd say. The next game's an away game at Ipswich, and we are hoping that we might get something out of that because Ipswich are bounced along the bottom of the league, really. They've lost their way a bit. They're not even midway. But they beat us 1-0, and the dangerous forward, Trevor Wymark, that I mentioned before, scored the winning goal. 19,600 at the game. Our team, unchanged. But a 1-0 loss wasn't heavy, but everybody at least thought we would get a draw out of that. So we're now off to Bournemouth for the FA Cup third round. And we're at home to Bournemouth for the FA Cup third round. And again, like every FA Cup season with Newcastle, we're always up for the cup. And lo and behold, 33,900 undisappointed. So we beat Bournemouth 2-0 with Supermac scoring and the Bournemouth defender called Cave scoring an own goal. Our team unchanged, McFall, Craig Clark, etc. With the usual Bournemouth. One or two notables in. Jimmy Gabriel, who they got from Everton. Harry Redknapp, who's still famous for all sorts of things. And they bought him from West Ham. Phil Bowyer, they got from Manchester City. And Alan Groves, that they got from Leicester City. So 2-0 in the cup, and everybody's happy that we're through to the next round. And of course, we're looking at the league as well, and we get home game against Crystal Palace the next, and everybody's certain we're going to do well with this, and 33,900 at the game, and of course we're not disappointed. We beat Palace 2-0, and same team, McFall, Craig Clark, etc. The Palace team was the team that would play at Palace earlier in the year. One difference is that Palace had bought Charlie Cook from Chelsea, since the last time we played them, and he was in that team. But we beat them 2-0, and it was a straightforward victory. No scares. Terry Hibbert on 32 minutes, Irvin Atlas on 50 minutes, and that was a 2-0 win that pushed well above halfway. We're actually in about the top 6, I think, by now. And the next game is Arsenal away, and we know this is going to be tough. No game against Arsenal's. That's their squad of that year. With the manager was Bertie Mee, yes, yeah, a well-respected coach and manager. Nobody's thinking we're going to get much out of this. Well, we did. We got to surprise everybody. Excuse me, and got a 2-2 draw. And we actually gave them something to think about. Because we, 27 minutes, Jimmy Smith scored. 46 minutes, just after half-time, Michael McDonald scored. So we're 2-0 up. And everybody thinks, well, we're on our way to an unexpected victory here. Well, we're thinking too soon, I'm afraid, because on 71 minutes, Kennedy scores the first goal, and then Alan Ball on 81 minutes scores the equaliser. So we get a 2-2 draw at Highbury with the 38,000 at the game. But very creditable 2-2 draw, I have to say. Disappointed that we couldn't hold on to at least a point, but we lost that. But nonetheless, a very creditable draw. So now we come to the FA Cup 4th round. We're drawn against Luton, and this is straightforward. What's to worry about here? Well, what's to worry about is that Luton beat with 2-0, and that's us out the FA Cup. 47,000 at the game. I remember this, and the howls in the Gallagher corner when Luton's second goal went in were unbelievable. But we're 2-0 down at half time. In the second half, they didn't even break into a sweat. They just kept out, almost easy peasy. And as I say, the groans in the Gallagher corner by the time the end of the match, you could probably heard down at the central station. Luton Town, well, tidy side, good football side. Couple of names which worth mention. Bobby Thompson, who's a full-back midfielder that they bought from us. Alan Slough that they got from Arsenal. John Aston that they got from Manchester United. And Gordon Heinsohn, who they bought from where? Newcastle United, would you believe? He must have enjoyed that day because they really did beat us. I mean, there was no lucky strikes, anything about that. We were well and truly dumped out of the cup by Luton Town. So now we're at home to Coventry in the league, and hoping that we keep pressing on in the league because we're in a good position. And Coventry come and we get a 1-1 draw. It's a bit disappointing, but interesting enough, I remember the game because it was quite an interesting game. 23,000 at the game. And this is a one I watched from the old stand for the first time for years and years. Just that I was still friends with the ex-Newcastle player, or a Newcastle player to be, Charlie Woods. And Charlie got a couple of tickets and they were in the stand. And we were just behind the director's box on the stand. It was good view, but not a patch on what we've got now, of course. And we get the 1-1 draw with against Coventry. And the important thing is we haven't lost. And funny, Steen, their centre forward, scores on 23 minutes. And then almost instantly, less than a minute, although it says a minute in the records, 24 minutes, 23 minutes they score, 24 minutes. Stuart Barraclough gets the equaliser, and we get the 1-1 draw and puts things right. And as I said, same Coventry team that we'd played previously. The only addition was that they introduced a young centre forward called Colin Steen, who was clearly heading for the top because he gave us quite a torrid time in the game. But anyway, we held out for the draw. And they're now going away to Wolves in the league match. And, well, again, this is another place where we always expect a tough game, but always hope we get something out of it. And we did. We got a 1-1 draw, and it's 1-0 to them at half time. And just after half time, we get the equaliser. And the irony is that a young man called Kenny Hibbert scores their goal, and a slightly older man called Terry Hibbert scores our goal. So the 1-1 draw with the two Hibberts scoring the goals, which is quite unusual. But important for us is that we didn't lose. We didn't lose. We're now into the Anglo-Italian Cup and a visit of going to visit Roma. It's we don't know what to expect in this, except a tough game. But lo and behold, we're up for it, and we 20,000 at the game, and John Tudor gets a brace, one in 28 minutes, one in 76, and we beat Roma 2-0, and everybody comes home blissfully happy. I mean, our team was the same team we've been playing all season. Typical Harvey. Italian names in the Roma team. Well, Scarlatti, Salvatore, Marini, all Italian internationals. So it was a good win by any stretch of the imagination. And we then come home to an away game at Norwich City. And everybody thinks, well, you can win at Italy, surely you can win at Norwich. Well, we did. We beat Norwich 1-0, and it was thanks to a Malcolm McDonald goal. He scores vitally when they seemed to be on top was the important thing. And it knocked the stuffing out of Norwich. 25 minutes, Supermac bangs a hard left footer in, and we're 1-0 up. And that's how it stayed. 26,400 at the game, and that's how it stayed. We got the 2 points in those days out of the game, and everybody was quite chuffed about that. And then we come home to a league match against Derby. Now, having got a result at Derby, everybody thinks, well, surely we'll get a result at home. And we do. We get a 2-0 victory over Derby, with Malcolm McDonald and John Tudor scoring the goals. 0-0 at half time. Supermac on 59 minutes. John Tudor on 85 minutes, and 2-0 win. All I say about that is that the two attacking strikers were now starting to frighten some defenders to death, and that was certainly true about this match against Derby, because they couldn't get near Supermac or John Tudor, even though they had a strong team. Derby, Alan Durden, who was to become manager of our neighbours as well, Colin Todd, Roy McParland, Archie Gemmell, John McGovern, John O'Hare, Kevin Hector. I mean, that's a strong Derby team that later on was to go and win the league at a later stage. But a 2-0 win, which provided by our attacking players. And then we come to guess what, Steve? A friendly. all the games we're playing in this season, and we go to Dublin to play the League of Ireland. I mean, there must have been a huge fee in that, surely. I'm getting cynical in me.
Crazy.
It's good, but we're fighting on all fronts, and we're in a good position in the league. I mean, by now we're better than halfway, and a couple of wins, and we start to get into the top four. So we play the League of Ireland, get a miserable 0-0 draw, and come home to a game at Stoke City, a home game with Stoke City, and everybody's thinking, well, get this, and we're starting to push the top. 24,000 at the game. And lo and behold, we do beat Stoke 1-0. Malcolm MacDonald goal on 86 minutes. I have to say we were biting our teeth for a 0-0 in this one because it was fairly dour, but Supermac shone his light on the game and pulled the thing out of the hat with a nice goal. Stoke had all the stars on display with Tony Warrington, their manager, was a nice man and a character, but Gordon Banks, Eric Skeels, Dennis Smith, Jimmy Robertson, John Mahoney, Jeff Hurst, of course, Jimmy Greenhoff, and on the left side of their midfield, a young man by the name of George Eastham, who used to play for us and caused us some difficulty over his wages at one stage, and is the reason why they get paid so much money these days, really, I suppose. So then we go to Ipswich Town in the Texaco Cup, and there we are. Ipswich Town come to us in the Texaco Cup, and everybody thinks, well, we've got a good game with them down there. Let's see if we can get something out of them here. Well, we don't. We got a 1-1 draw, 22,000 at the game, and that man Trevor Wymark, who I kept warning about being a good centre forward, scored in 5 minutes and put the wind up of everybody, but 70 minutes and Supermac puts that right and gets the equaliser. And the Ipswich team has got one or two new additions with a young man called Kevin Beattie playing in their back line, who was to go on to be quite a strong England player in the years ahead. And we're now going off to Old Trafford to play Manchester United in the away game. That's their squad for that season. And it's always a strong squad. Manager on the left there in the black tracksuit, of course, is Tommy Docherty, a real character. And the one on the right, the coach on the right is Barry Credden, the ex-player who I got to know quite well through the drinking habits of my DM Audrey, which is another story. He likes whiskey and so does she. Never mind. And we beat. We get beat 2-1, which for us it's disappointing, but we give them a fright as well. I mean, they 44 just before half time they scored. Just after half time they made it 2-0. Then 57 minutes and Irvin Natras scored a beautiful goal, and then for the rest of the game it was all Newcastle. We could easily have got a draw out of that match. Our team unchanged. One change in goal. Martin Burley instead of McFall, who was injured. Otherwise, it was the same team. Jim Smith got injured, and Terry McDermott came on for Jim Smith. The Manchester United team: Jimmy Rimmer, Martin Buchan, Jim Walton, Steve James, Tony Young, Mick Martin, who was eventually become a star for us. Willie Morgan, Bobby Charlton, George Graham, Lou McCarry, and Brian Kidd. People who are still in the game nowadays were in that match, and it was a good game, but we lost. We could have easily got a draw. The next game is back to the Anglo-Italian Cup. I mean, our players must be bloody dizzy all the travelling they're doing, all the different games. Anyway, we've got Bologna at home in the Anglo-Italian Cup, and it's a good game. Although the crowd's only 15,000, and that says something about how the crowd feels about some of these things. 15,000, and we beat Bologna 1-0. Bologna are quite a good side, but we beat them 1-0, and our team is the usual. The only slight difference is at left back. Martin Burley's still in goal, but at left back, Frank Clark's injured, and young Alan Kennedy comes into the team to play for Newcastle against Bologna. We're then at home against Chelsea, and we know it's going to be a tough game. Always is against Chelsea. But lo and behold, we'll get a 1-1 draw with Shod Barraclough on it with a penalty on 33 minutes. And Chelsea got an equaliser with an unfortunate own goal. Pat Howard, somebody shot and it bounced off Pat's back into the net, so they got a 1-1 draw. Interestingly, is that Barraclough took the penalty because Supermac was off injured. He was out of this game, but otherwise a good 1-1 draw and keeping it going in the right direction in the league. Away next to Leicester City, and we get a 0-0 draw, 18,700, and everybody's pleased about that because we're as I say, we're still without Supermac, and get a 0-0 draw. And Leicester were playing well, and Leicester were slightly above us in the league, and their team was practically unchanged from when we played them in the previous encounter. So 0-0 at Leicester came. It went down well. We're going in the right direction. We're back to the Anglo-Italian Cup. We're away to Como in Italy. Como, average Serie A team, but nonetheless still regarded enough to put them into the Anglo-Italian Cup. However, it tells you something about how the Italians thought about this trophy, because 3,000 at the game, 3,000. I mean, anyway, we got a 2-0 win in Como, and Bob Moncur and John Tudor are the goal scorers, which is great. So we're now making progress, or at least it's a league style thing. So we're now making progress in that. So then we get West Ham at home, and everybody's thinking, well, gosh, we're going like a train now. We're going to get to the top of the league. Well, West Ham soon put that notion out of our head because they beat with 2-1 rather. John Tudor sets off 9 minutes, but then attacking forward winger called Matt Dougal for West Ham scored on 17 minutes and then again on 47, and that's how it stayed with 25,000 at the game. And everybody was a bit deflated because that win would have actually put us in the top four. We really would have been feeling the heady heights of the top of the league. Next game is we're back to the Texaco Cup, an away game at Ipswich, and well, we've won other games. We might as well have a go at this one. Well, we didn't. We lost at 1-0, and the goal was scored by the Irish winger Hamilton, who was becoming a star for them and for Northern Ireland, and was to become quite a decent manager in his time as well. So that's a disappointing loss, but it's not the end of the world. It's only one of the cups that we're in, but we're out of the Texaco Cup anyway. Home game against Southampton is the next one. Sorry, an away game against Southampton in the league, having already been away in the cup, and we get a 1-1 draw with Stuart Barraclough scoring for us on 67, all thinking that we're going to get a 1-0 win when the attacking winger Gilchrist scored on 80 minutes and burst all the bubbles. Mick Shannon was in their team. Only 14,700 at the game. I sometimes wonder with these small crowds how some of these teams survived, Southampton particularly. However, they did. Our team, well, it was the same team as we'd been playing all season, and Supermac was back. So we got a 1-1 draw with Barraclough and Gilchrist scoring the goals. So back we come to another away game, and this time away to Manchester City. Tough game, but hopeful because we give them a good game here that we might actually get something out of it. Well, we didn't. We lost 2-0. And Tony Booth, and I put that picture in from the game because it's unusual to get a one through the goal net, and that's
great photo,
isn't it? It's Willie McFall's back in goal, but that's one of the goals from I think it was the old fullback Tony Booth who scored that one, and the other goal scorer was Rodney Marsh. We lost 2-0, but it was a good tidy game. 26,000 at the game, but as I say, I just thought that was a most unusual photograph to see it through the goal net, and because as you know, I like to look for the unusual if I can find it. And then we're back at home for a home game against Liverpool. Well, hard game or not, everybody's hoping to get something out of this. Well, we do. We 37,000 at the game, and we get a fright, of course, with a young man called Kevin Keegan, OBE. I noticed on these things, they always put his OBE on. I think that's nice. 24 minutes, and Keegan sets for 1-0 down. But then on 43, just before half-time, John Tudor scores. And on 65, John Tudor scores another goal to make it 2-1. Now, I remember being at this game as well. And after that goal went in, it was backs to the wall. Liverpool really did have a go after that to see if they could get an equaliser or even a winner. Then we're at home to Everton, and hoping that we can repeat the Mersey double, as it were. 23,500 at the match. But it ends in a 0-0 draw with our team, same as has been playing all season. McFall, Craig Clark, McDermott, Howard, Barraclough, Smith, McDonald, Tudor and Hibbert. And Everton, they're all the stars out. Gordon West, Roger Kenyon, Lyons, Howard Kendall, John Hurst, John Connolly, etc. And the 0-0 draw was quite creditable. But it stopped with slipping. With a couple of defeats that we'd had earlier on had knocked out of near the top of the league and had backed down towards the middle. So the next game was an away game at Tottenham Hotspur. The last league game of the season, as it happens, and unfortunately we lose 3-2. Everybody was hopeful at the start because John Tudor and Terry McDermott put Till 2-0 up by half time, but then Chivers, a centre forward, and Martin Peters, the World Cup player, equalised, and then right on the death, 87-minute penalty, Chivers scored another one, and we lost 3-2, which was very disappointing. And that ends the league programme, in which we finished 8th in the league.
Good season.
It was. Joe Harvey thought it was a good season, but he always felt that had we been able to keep Tony Green on the pitch, we would have been higher up. And that was the beginning of the end for Tony Green. The other interesting thing is, as I said at the beginning, 60 games we played, and Harvey only uses 24 players. Top goal scorers, you might guess, Supermac, 25, John Tudor, 24. So that's pretty good going for them too. So then we go to finish off the Anglo-Italian Cup. We played Torino, and we at home, and we beat them 4-1. That's the squad flying off to the last away game at Florence at Fiorentina, and that's a picture of John Tudor scoring his flying header. I've talked to you about these flying headers again, and that was the one he scored against Torino at St James's Park. The one I like of John is where his nose is just about half an inch off the grass. The forwards aren't risky about putting their heads in there, but John Tudor used to. And we go on to beat Crystal Palace in the Anglo-Italian Cup.
I've got to be about 18.
And then we beat Crystal Palace in the Anglo-Italian 5-1. And then we beat Fiorentina in Florence 2-1 with Supermac and David Craig scoring the goals, and we end up as Anglo-Italian Cup winners. And thank God we did, because we entered so many cups. If we didn't win one of them, it would have been a travesty. But a good season, I think, is how you would describe it. That's right, Steve. There's one interesting one in that between the game against Palace and Crystal Palace and the Anglo-Italian Cup, we played a friendly against the Mackhams. And for the love of me, I can't find out what that was about other than it being a friendly. I mean, were they that short of money? However, it must have been serious enough because it attracted 36,000 people. So there we are. That's a season and a half. As I say, I think the season's defined for me, and I think was for Joe Harvey when Tony Green got injured. From then on, we were doing all right, but not as well as we might have done if Tony had been on the pitch. So that's it.
Great stuff, George. We're never going to keep this to an hour, unfortunately. We've gone into an hour and a half again, but never mind. People enjoy it, George.
I try to skim it down a little bit, but the trouble is, if you want to tell a story, it's difficult to. And bearing in mind, normally it would only be 40 games.
Especially with all these cup competitions
and
friendlies.
Takes it up to 60 games. And then you add the friendlies on, I think it's 65 games.
So apologies to those who only like to watch an hour or only have an hour. You'll have to watch it in 2 parts. But it's another wonderful season from George. Thanks very much for all you've done this year, George, on the show.
My pleasure, Steve.
And we will be back in 2023 with season 73-74. Have a great Christmas,
and
George.
You, Steve. And you.
Take care. And thanks for joining us again. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
A big thanks to all our sponsors. First off, Skips and Bins, telephone 0800 25 45 25 3, email inquiries at skipsandbins.com, website skipsandbins.com, easy contract free and pay-as-you-go waste collection. Thanks to Garden of Eden Dispensary, CBD hemp and cannabinoid specialists. You can find them at thegohd.com. And thanks to Mr. Vicky's Sauces. They are handmade in Cumbria, and you can find more information out on their website, mrvickies.co.uk. And if you want to order any, email info@mrvickies.co.uk or telephone 01768 210 102. Big thanks to Blowhole Brewery, a new beer made on Tyneside. The cans are all designed in the colours of Newcastle United strips from days gone by. Black and white there, the purple and blue, and the good old-fashioned blue from the Entertainers' days. But get more information on the Blowhole Brewery range, such as Geordie Juice, from blowholebrewery.co.uk. Thanks to Media Arts for all the help with the technical side of things and video side of things. And thanks to qtechshop.co.uk, the makers of pool tables and snooker tables in Wallsend, Newcastle, and the guys who do our website, nufcmatters.com. If you want to subscribe to the show, then all you need to do is click the subscribe button below. You can also hit the thumb up, which does us a favor by liking the video, and click share to your social media, such as Twitter and Facebook. We're also available as a podcast on iTunes and Spotify and the rest. And if you want to contribute to the show, use the QR code. It takes you straight to the membership pack and you can join the channel. What do you get for your membership pack? You get a scarf, a cup, a pen, and a membership card, and entry into the monthly draw. You can also make a donation by hitting the $ in the chat tonight. We also give you something for free if you subscribe to the show. To get your car sticker, email john@nufcmatters.com and he will post you one out. We also support the food bank on this show. And if you want to make a virtual donation to the food bank, then go to nufcfansfoodbank.co.uk and make a donation today. On our website, we've got lots of t-shirts, cups, pens, you name it, memorabilia, if you want to buy it and support the show. For Christmas, we have the Bruno Christmas jumper, which is selling rather well. And we'll have the bobble hats, Play Like Almiron, Bruno's Magic, and Bruno's 39 and Joe Linton's J7. Get yourself to nufcmatters.com to buy them today. If you want to buy people a ticket for one of our events next year, we've got an evening with Steve Howie, which is Friday the 24th of February at the Tyneside Irish Centre. Tickets are £50 from nufcmatters.com or newcastlelegends.com. And you can also buy them on voucher before Christmas. Get somebody a bargain and a nice Christmas present. Peter Beardsley is on the 10th of February at St Dom's Catholic Club in Newcastle. Tickets available direct from the venue. And for this one, Friday the 2nd of June next year at the Grand Hotel in Gosforth, 6:30 start. An evening with Rob Lee, Lee Clark and John Beresford. To book tickets, contact Natalie at heelandtour.org.uk or visit their website heelandtour.org.uk/events. If you're looking for a Christmas present and people like a book, then get yourself NME from the Bender Squad to the Gremlins, or the last remaining copies of Black or White, No Grey Areas, Lee Clark's autobiography, and you can get them from www.badboysbooks.net.